So is this, oh, it is, absolutely. So welcome, everybody. Thank you for coming. You can't imagine what it's like to stand here and see the generations of activities. And, I think at the moment I know everybody in the room, which is just wonderful, except maybe not Norm. I don't know Norm. Hi, Norm. Uh, so that's great. So thank you, everybody, for coming. I just want to welcome everybody. I do want to say that later in the program, as you looked at it, if other people besides designated speakers have something they would like to say, uh, Connie, 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 Connie. Oh, Rosario, sorry, didn't recognize somebody, my apologies. Um, so the many of us here have come together over the years through the music of Carolyn McDade and the work that Carolyn and Jean and I and others did at Women's Center of Plainville. So please, on the music we were listening to from Chris We Met on piano is a Carolyn McDade song. You have the words, This Ancient Love, if you want to look at the beautiful poetry of it. Um, and so that's all I really want to say at this point in time. I'll be back later. I want to thank everybody for coming. Please, I hope people can stay around at the end for refreshments. And let's just really have a wonderful celebration of this person who we all miss. Okay. Yes.
Hi, everybody. My name is Jeanne Stevens, and this is just a beautiful, beautiful gathering of people. And welcome to Community Church of Boston. Many of you, maybe we haven't seen, but have maybe a deeper history with this place than I do. Even though I go back to the 80s, but was not around for Carolyn McDade. But we have celebrated her in this church. We had 2 years ago an event that celebrated our sanctuary movement that happened in the mid-80s. We had Manuel here, also known as Antonio Lopez Galvan. His pseudonym was Manuel while he was here, and Carolyn was very involved in that. So was Jeanne, and we celebrated Carolyn. We got an entire discography of her music from her person who, agent, is that what you call it? Anyway, if Carolyn is out there, we send this to you with love for all the music you did here at Community Church. I guess I start this with what I know from Central America about people like Jeanne. I say, Jeanne Gallo, presente! Presente. Jeanne was with us over the years deeply, especially during the first years in the 80s, Morse Auditorium. the sanctuary project, and many talks that she gave at Community Church. A number of them we have on tape in our huge archive of 105 years of history that's on the 5th floor that we're trying to celebrate and resuscitate and preserve. And they're just getting started on that. And among the projects that we've done is digitize some of Jeanne's pieces as well as Sonny's as well. And there's more to do in that regard. So this is just great. We're so honored and humbled that we're doing this remembrance of Jeanne in this place. I remember Brother Blue spoke here. The first thing he did was get down on his knees and kiss the ground. He said, "This is sacred ground." And to me, it's just an ornery old building that has a lot of headaches and problems, but also sacred ground, and just the gift that we have of trying to move it forward, that was moved forward by Jeanne and Sonny, and it's in our hands to keep the flame alive. So welcome, and if you think it's too hot or too cold, I'm the guy to talk to. I'm also the guy who'll be running the Zoom in the back and singing a couple of songs. Lucky to get to do that. So make yourselves at home and know that you're welcome here. This is just such a wonderful, distinguished group of a demographic that I really want to find out from you any kind of stories that you have about your history or with Community Church. We're really interested in knowing all of that and would like to hear from you any chance you get, or you can call me later or email me, whatever. So thank you and welcome.
So let me just say a word about Mary. So for people who know Carolyn McDade's music, you know, over her lifetime, she put together, I think it's 15 albums. Is that right?
I think it was,
Is it more than that?
no, it's newer albums, but
Oh.
there have been many other songs, yes.
Okay. And of all that music, the music that both Jeanne and I liked the best was the music that was a call to arms, to get out there and do something about it. As many of us know, Carolyn's music beautifully in her later years moved to more ecologically focused and beautiful, more things like This Ancient Love, melodious and poetic and beautiful, but not the call to arms. So what I've tried to do today is really put together some of the things that are that were her favorites and are that call to arms, since that's where we all need to be at this point in time. Jeanne will not have known the couple of songs that Dean's going to do later because they are newer. And what Mary's going to start it with is I Come of My People, which was actually Jeanne's absolute total favorite song from all of Carolyn's music, because it tells the stories of what we as women all across the world face and are having to deal with. So thank you, Mary, with Chris at piano.
It's wonderful to be here with so many people who loved Jeanne and so many people who Jeanne loved. I Come of My People. It's an interesting song for me personally. It's the very first song that Carolyn asked me to help sort of construct, if I can put it that way, arrange. And I was this little kid, by the way. I was like 23 years old. And I was like, me? You want me to do this? So if you know those songs of the call to arm age, Carolyn usually had like 59 verses, and we would sing all 59 verses. So at one point I said to her, Carolyn, we need to kind of split this up because it's a lot of verses. But I Come of My People is such a strong song. It's such a statement of solidarity and unity. But I want to give you a little bit of an instruction, if I might, just so you know how it's going to begin. So we're going to begin it as best we can the way we recorded it. So I will sing a little bit, and then we're going to, then I'll start to read some of the verses, like at the very beginning. If you're familiar with the song and the recording, that's how it starts. So you're going to come in on, we don't have a nation, correct? No. Oh, yeah, our flag. That's right. Sorry. So, you're going to come in, our flags, the green grass growing, our boundaries, the edge of love, and then continue. So we're going to show you how that works. And then we also want to go over the chorus with you, partly because there are at least 5 different harmonies on the chorus, and a lot of them are very high. But we don't want you feeling like you've got to screech to the top limits. As Susan Caldwell reminded me earlier, she says, we're getting lower. So, all right. So anyway, so it goes a little bit like this. So, hold on. Oops, sorry, Chris. Wrong thing. Wrong song here. So, like, if we just follow me behind the piano, I'm going to take it. We share with the mountain. So we'll be like this. We share it with the mountain, with the wind singing plain, holding rivers that carry our running waters. We share it with the sun, with the deep breathing moon, pulling tides like our blood ever changing. Now you sing with me. It goes like this. Our flags, the green grass growing, our boundaries, the edge of love, our loyalties to life and to freedom. And then here we go, the chorus. I come for my people, for my people, I come. My people are the women this earth rising. Sister, come and take my hand. Circle every land. You're my people and I want my people free. You good? I come of my people, for my people I come. My people are the women this earth rising. We don't have a nation, no boundaries to extend. It's the love of life we share, forever binding. We share it with the sparrow, the wolves, quetzal, and whale, every snake, turtle, spider, and every otter. We share it with the mountains, with the wind singing plain, holding rivers that carry our running water. We share it with the sun, with the deep breathing moon, pulling tides like our blood ever changing. Here we go. Our flags, the green grass growing. Our boundary is the edge of love. Our loyalty is to life and to freedom. I come of my people, for my people I come. My people are the women of this earth rising. So sister, come and take my hand. We'll circle every land. You're my people, and I want my people free. These hands have held the young as they first fill their lungs and yell, still corded to their mothers. These hands have held a child to this breast for a while and follow a heart fierce with loving. These hands have cleansed the wounds, gathered herbs and healing roots, and raged or raped in dying
Sound, New York, and Washington. Copenhagen, Skokie, Birmingham, Manila, Belfast, Beirut, and San Salvador. Come of my people, to my people I come. My people are the women, this earth rising. Sisters, come and take my hand. We'll circle every land. You're my people and I want my people free. I won't pay for their wars or policing of the poor. I'm too old for their lies, threats, and bribery. I've lived half a century, and I'm old enough to be sure of my living and my dying. I'll fight, bleed, and die, so the children need not cry for bread, love, laughter, and water. These hands are my body is my own. It's the same for every mother's daughter. All Earth's children belong to me. I live to see them free. I pray I can stay with the struggle. I come of my people. Come on. There you go. My people are the women, this earth rising. Sisters, come and take my hand. We'll circle every land. You're my people and I want my people free. One more time. I come of my people I come. My people are the women, this earth rising. Sisters, come and take my hand. We'll circle every land. You're my people, and I want my people free.
Totally fabulous, Mary and Chris. Thank you so much. But why I think I have anything to say after that song, I don't actually know, because that really just about says it all. And there are many, many things that I could say and many stories that I could tell and would like to tell about Jeanne, but that would have me standing here till about midnight. And I'm actually really interested in hearing what some other people's reflections are. So in trying to decide what to say, I wanted to just go back and highlight a few really key elements about Jeanne's life. And at the heart of things, I think indeed Jeanne was an educator. No matter what she did, at what point in her life, with whatever academic background, it was focused on education. But the education was always focused on education for action, not just for learning, to learn something and to know how to move it along. And blended very much with that was the fact that she was as strong a feminist as she indeed. I've just seen all my little friends who came in the back who I didn't know were here. That's a distraction. Let me see if I can get back on track here or not. So one of the things that Jeanne absolutely understood was that if you took care of things in terms of human rights and justice in relation to women, and in relation to children. You would take care of everything for everybody. If we bring justice for women and for children, and indeed have human rights restored for women and children, we will have improved society for all the way around for all of us. You will get it right for absolutely everything. In her early years, Jeanne's early degrees were in science, and unbeknownst probably to a lot of people who know her here from her activist years, she taught science at the high school and the college level after having a science degree as a bachelor's and as a master's from BC. But then she moved on from just basic science like that to doing courses like Science for Humane Survival, which she team taught for years and years with other people at UMass. And she also then moved on and taught a long course for many years on war and peace at BC. After she completed her PhD in social ethics, she also then really moved into putting more of her women's studies back into her work. It taught courses which she developed, courses like When Women Count, Ecofeminism, and Feminist Theology, and taught at places like EDS and Andover Newton. So not everybody who knew her in the activist world knew her in the academic world. But then those of you who are not from Cape Ann and Gloucester don't know that some of the educational work she did at the end of her life when she was the Director of Education at Wellspring House in Gloucester, which is our shelter education system. And there she was teaching basic adult education to women who were trying to get their English and their math and their writing and their basic computer skills together so that they could move off of welfare. And then as her last big educational job, she was working with the Gloucester Fishermen's Wives, doing the same kind of very basic adult education with the fishermen in Gloucester, helping and most of the fishermen in Gloucester are Sicilian and did not necessarily have good English. And so in trying to move ahead in the fishing industry, when the fishing regulations got so tightened, they needed to move towards getting a captain's license. So Jeanne again taught basic math and English and computer skills and how to fill out all those governmental forms so that all those Sicilian fishermen could move ahead and advance their lives. And it's really important to be able to say and share that she loved doing that basic education with the women trying to move off welfare in Gloucester and the fishermen as much as she loved teaching ecofeminism at EDS. But always in the midst of that was in fact trying to move us all along so that we took the action that was necessary that came from the increased skills that we got. One of the other things that well, let me just finish the education thing. Then the last big education endeavor that Jeanne engaged in, she and I did together. We had been to the border a couple of times, and we came back to Cape Ann and put together a workshop on what immigration and the border was all about, what the realities of U.S. law and international law was. And in the course of 2018 and 2019, we did about 14 or 15 workshops across the Cape Ann area until, in fact, unfortunately, COVID shut down our effort like it shut down everybody else's effort. So she moved this through education. Two more things. One thing that even Dean didn't know until he and I talked about this a few weeks ago is back in the late 80s, before we moved to Cape Ann, Jeanne had at one point applied for and been offered the position as the administrator and coordinator of Community Church. She, however, and she would have welcomed, as you can imagine from what I've just said, the education and organizing effort an opportunity that would have afforded her here. But she also felt like she wasn't sure she had the right amount of pastoral skills to, in fact, take on that part of the job. And so, in fact, she ended up instead becoming the executive director of the New England AFSC over in Cambridge and carried on her education and action work from there. So as a final thing, I would just say, you may wonder why at a memorial for Jeanne, I'm wearing a keffiyeh. And again, it's a story that very few people know. I don't even know all the details. During the time she was at the AFSC, there was going to be a big international conference of people all over the world trying to figure out how to create a worldwide peace and justice movement for Palestine. Now, this is back in the 80s. And Jeanne was one of the people invited to come and attend that conference and try to make the international plan. At that point in time, and I don't know the year exactly, somebody else probably does, it is when Arafat and the PLO were in fact driven out of the Middle East and had to move to Tunisia. So in fact, that didn't happen. But at some time thereafter, a woman, I don't know her name, had a very unusual and complex kind of need, which came, Palestinian woman, this came to Jeanne's attention at the AFSC, and whatever the complex issue was, Jeanne helped that woman meet that very personal individual need. And that woman, whose name unfortunately I do not know, sent Jeanne the keffiyeh at that point in time. So Jeanne, in her own quiet way, has been very involved in the struggle for Palestine for, 35 years. And if she were here today, rather than us having a memorial, she would tell us that what we all need to be about at this point in our lives is advancing the struggle for peace and justice in Palestine. So thank you, Marcy. So our next singer-songwriter is our compatriot from Cape Ann, unfortunately now in Santa Fe, Marcy Silvestro. And Marcy actually knew Jeanne before I knew Marcy. So if you want to say anything, feel free.
I don't remember exactly when I met Jeanne Gallo, but somebody says if a large, hard door walks in a room with the word justice across it, that's Jeanne Gallo. Well, I found out if you open that door, you found a compassionate heart. You found an artist. I never knew Jeanne was an artist, but I saw some drawings on their dining room table. And I said, Jeanne, did you just buy these at downtown? No, I did these. I almost fell over. But I also saw Jeanne as someone who reprimanded me when I said, Jeanne, I'm getting tired, all the justice work. You never get tired of justice, Marcy Silvestro. So, yes, exactly. So in that tiredness, I rewrote one of my songs that's been around since 1987, Crossing the Lines. I added lines to reflect what's going on today in Gaza and has been going on for years across the world. Mothers, fathers, children are starving. Tell me, people, what is our choice? When governments send in money and guns to silence their voice. So I'm crossing the lines for justice. I'm crossing the lines for peace. I'm crossing the lines for liberation. I'm crossing the lines for you. People sitting in prison for rights they know are theirs, living and working in freedom and now they have disappeared. So I'm crossing the lines for justice. I'm crossing the lines for peace. I'm crossing the lines for liberation. I'm crossing the lines for you. Barbed wire fences, invisible lines. In the wars you learn the cost. For religion or country, the speeding bullet doesn't care whose life is lost. So I'm crossing the lines for justice. I'm crossing the lines for peace. I'm crossing the lines for liberation. I'm crossing the lines for you. I'm crossing the lines. I'm crossing the lines. I'm crossing the lines for you.
Thank you, Sonny, for requesting this song. It's an anthem of ours here at Community Church. And the lyrics are in your program, and especially the ones that are in bold are for you to join. It's called International. It's sort of a rewriting of the Internationale in a sort of updated folk version. Jim Infantino wrote this. Rise up, you lonely wanderers. Rise up, you hungry people. The hurricane is coming. The land will soon be flooded. The past is dead and over. Rise up and claim your freedom. You are the sleeping giant. Arise, arise, arise. Do not beg for your salvation from preachers, kings, and masters. The people hold the power. Arise and claim your freedom. The wealthy enjoy privilege only at your acquiescence, only while you stay in darkness. Arise, 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 because in the end, freedom will be international. While politicos divide us, they demand their compensation. We should pray they don't refuse us. Arise and claim your freedom. While all of us were sleeping, the bank owners got richer at the expense of all our children. Arise and claim your freedom. They are frightened by our numbers and by our interdependence, and rightfully they should be. Arise, arise, arise. Because in the end, freedom will be international. Do not numb yourself with purchases or vain overconsumption. Do not isolate your spirit. Arise and claim your freedom. Your TV and your iPhone seek to keep you in your slumber. Step out into the sunlight. Arise, 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 rise up, you lonely wanderers. Rise up, you hungry people. The hurricane is coming. The land will soon be flooded. The past is dead and over. Rise up and claim your freedom. You you are the sleeping giant. Arise, 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 because in the end, ooh, freedom will be. Because in the end, ooh, freedom will be international.
So the next wonderful person we will hear from is Eileen Lazarus, Jean's niece from Michigan.
Good afternoon. I don't have my Aunt Jean's public speaking skills. And Sonny just introduced me. My mom, Franny, was Jean's sister. When I was young, Auntie Jeannie was in the convent, and we really didn't get to spend a lot of time together. But the time that we did spend together, I would go to the convent with her, spend weekends at the convent, and the nuns would dote over me. And I have to thank her for the faith that I have today, because my parents really didn't have much faith. So I did learn that from her. And like Sonny said earlier, she was an educator. She always took me to the Science Museum, anything that was for education, she took me. So not until my Aunt Jean moved to Gloucester did we really get to spend more time with her. And then I had my two boys, and they really became a part of visiting Jean and Sonny. And they enjoyed it a lot. My Aunt Jean, she really did have a love for family. And, the boys, my son Scott, he went on a lobster boat with the fishermen, brought back a bunch of lobsters to eat. And then, my son Mike, grown boy today, him and Aunt Jean had a few words from time to time, but as he grew into a young man, they really kind of did see eye to eye. So 25 years ago, right around, I decided to move to Michigan. And one thing that I noticed over the time that I've been in Michigan, coming back for my visits, yearly usually, was how much the world here has changed and how everyone has changed. And I probably changed too. But when we would go visit my Aunt Jean and Sonny, that world didn't change. That was so comforting to go to Gloucester and be there, And I know that moving forward, when I visit, Gloucester will always be a place that, I go visit. I feel that I was blessed over the last few years that I was able to have a lot of great visits and talks with Auntie Jeannie. And I'm really grateful for that. So today, we don't just say goodbye. I want to say thank you for everything you've done. We miss you, we love you, and we'll always carry you with us until we meet again.
Linda, do you know you're next? And I think Mary, where did Mary go? Mary, you had a little story you wanted to tell before Linda? Oh, there you are. Okay. All right. So be sure to say how you know her and all that, okay?
Sure will. Well, it was Jean Gallo that said, Linda, you have to be part of Carolyn McDade's group. I said, well, who's she? And as we know, that was ages ago, and she introduced me to her, and she was right. I did have to be part of Carolyn McDade's singing group, and
for all the recordings that we did. I have been on all of them except one. And one of them, I actually contributed a song, and again, in the style of Jeanne, she said, Linda, could you write a song about Oscar Romero? I said, Oscar Romero, oh my God, how can I do that? And I began to read his sayings, and I came across actually a poster. May my blood be a seed of liberation. I said, that's it. That's going to be the one. And reflecting on that, I was able to put it together to sing it as a round. Now, do you know how difficult that is? But we were able to do that. Huh? Well, it was everybody's contribution as well. And so that ended up officially being recorded on the Songs of Sorrow and Healing. So if you have that, that's where you'll see. And once again, Jeanne was saying, Lynn, could you write another song? I said, oh, gee. And I said, because I write songs maybe once every 20 years, seriously. So, see, that is true. Well, it just so happened that Jeanne invited me to come to her 80th birthday, and no gifts. So I said, well, what could I bring instead? I know, I'll bring her a song that I actually wrote. The Sun of Justice will rise on you today. That was my healing song. I had just been healed of stage 4 lymphoma. And that was the passage, Malachi chapter 4, verse 2, that came across that I actually shared with the doctor at Dana-Farber when he had to look at the final body scan. I said, well, you're not going to find anything. And he said, well, how do you know? Because it said, and I said, I came across this verse, the Son of Justice will rise on you today with healing wings. Well, 2 weeks later, I was humming something, and I know now, I pay attention to what I hum. You probably know that too, right, Marcy? And this song came out. So I'm going to sing it for you. And then I've sung it in other places, but people actually put in a line, a word that needs to rise in them today. So let me just at least begin with this. Oh, the Sun of Justice will rise on you today. Oh, the Sun of Justice will rise in you today. Oh, the Sun of Justice will rise on you today with healing wings. Oh, with healing wings, with healing wings. Oh, with healing wings. So that was sung on her 80th birthday. Yeah. So see, when Jeanne asks you to do something, you take that very seriously. And another thing she asked me, she said, Lynn, we need to have someone take over the Justice and Peace Office of the Sisters of Notre Dame after Gertrude Barron had served on there. So I said, oh, gee. So I did. I did. And, just from her input, we used her way of analyzing. And she has a special way of analyzing what's going on, Paulo Freire's method, actually. And she was able to help me move along with where I needed to be. And what I needed to share with the Sisters of Notre Dame during and where they needed to be as well. One of them was on I think the last action was the School of the Americas in Arizona. I remember that being with Jeanne then. So anyways, a lot of her spirit has been passed on to me. I hope a lot of her spirit has been passed on to each of you. And that's what you need to be very mindful of, so that when you come to a point of saying, oh, what am I going to do? Just stop and think, now, what would Jeanne tell me to do? You know, that might give you a clue. That might give you a clue. So I think because of her, not only did I, write that song, but there's been other milestones in my life that I have to attribute to her because of her tenacity, her persistence, etc. And I was just so glad that she introduced me to Carolyn McDade, because that is, and I see some of the other folks in the group here, that has also carried me through. So when in doubt, just ask yourself that question. What would Jeanne tell me to do? What would her advice be? I could go on, but I'm not. I'm just grateful for her life. I'm grateful for all of yours. Amen.
So as people who've known Jeanne for a long time know, she was a Sister of Notre Dame for about 30 years. But also she did an enormous amount of work with the Sisters of Mercy out of Windham, New Hampshire. And there are lots of them floating around here today too. And it is through all those associations that Jeanne met Susan Caldwell. But Susan Caldwell not only was one of many more justice associates, but also had a lovely cottage in Maine where Jeanne used to escape to for summer rest and vacation. And then I ultimately got to join them there. So Susan Caldwell.
And I have to have notes. So, when I was in 7th grade, my English teacher, Miss Hayes, made us learn this maxim. If you have 2 loaves of bread, sell one and buy a lily. I had no idea what that meant, but I pretended that I did because I was in love with Miss Hayes and I wanted to impress her. It definitely stayed with me, however, throughout the years, and for some reason, I often thought of Jeanne in terms of her bread. 2 dense loaves of justice. I don't know if she ever could have shed one even to buy a lily, but to me, and I thought of all her lilies, I thought of love, laughter, friendship, music, travel, the ocean, cats, a good book, good food, good scotch, cooking, what else, and more. I first met Jeanne, as Sonny said, with the Sisters of Mercy in 1979 when she came to New Hampshire to help prepare the Sisters of Mercy for their ultimate immersion in the politics and struggles of people of Latin America. Concienciación. Yep, right. Jeanne was a force, as you know, forever raising the consciousness of anyone whom she encountered. She certainly raised mine, and she would not let me off the hook. Sometimes a little force goes a long way, however. When we visited, she would say, "Susan, what have you been doing? Are you out there? What are the Mercies doing? Have you read this? Have you seen that? Have you been to the border? Do you watch Rachel?" I could hardly take a breath. I did take a deep breath, however, when I visited my friend Mary Eileen Dame in Nicaragua in 1986. She's here today, too. A medical doctor and social justice activist. She had been ministering to the people of Nica for 5 years. She was returning to the U.S. to care for her parents, and she invited me to come and journey with her during her last week as she traveled the country saying her goodbyes. We celebrated the 7th anniversary of the revolution. We went to the barrios to say goodbye. We went to the Women's Center where we danced. We went to an outdoor concert. We went to an outdoor beer garden. Actually, everything was outdoors, including some of the hospital wards. I was basically a tourist and loving my time in Nicaragua. I remember thinking then, just imagine if Jeanne Gallo were here, I could be going to lectures morning, noon, and night. One day, our plan was to travel up the river for lunch and for more goodbyes. We arrived at a little dock where a little boat was waiting. I stepped into the boat, and so help me God, sitting there with her single lens reflex camera around her neck was Jeanne Gallo. I couldn't believe it. I thought, can a person have one decent vacation in a third world country without running into Jeanne Gallo? She said, "Susan, what are you doing here?" I said, "What are you doing here?" It may not sound like it, but I am in awe of Jeanne Gallo. I jest, of course, about the foregoing. What I shall treasure about her is that she was all about love. Tender, fierce, faithful love for the people, for La Familia, for her sisters, for Sonny, until her dying breath. Jeanne Gallo, presente.
We now get a series of really wonderful additional music. Dean, and then Marcy, and then back to Mary Casey.
This is another little anthem that we've grown to love here and sing over and over. You could call it an alternative national anthem, or a national anthem according to Howard Zinn, let's say. The author is named Jean Rowe. She lives in Brooklyn, and I've been singing this song endlessly ever since I heard it the first time. Atlantic and Pacific flow, the Great Lakes to the Gulf of Mexico, to the Gulf of Mexico, to the Gulf of Mexico. The land between sustains us all. To cherish her is our fervent call. Arise, arise, I see the future in your eyes. To a more perfect union we aspire, and lift our voices from the fire. reached these shores from distant lands. We came with hungry hearts and hands. Some came by force and some by will, to the auction block and the darkened mill. Arise, arise, I see the future in your eyes. To a more perfect union we aspire, and lift our voices from the fire. We died in your fields and your factories, strange fruit hanging from the poplar trees, an old coat hanger in a room somewhere, a trail of tears, an electric chair. Arise, arise, I see the future in your eyes. To a more perfect union we aspire, and lift our voices from the fire. And our great responsibility to be guardians of our liberty, till tyrants bend to the people's dreams and justice flows like a mighty stream. Arise, arise, I see the future in your eyes. To a more perfect union we aspire, and lift our voices from the fire. We lift our voices from the fire.
Seeing how we're all exes here, I'm an ex-sister at Charity, and from Connecticut, as a matter of fact. And one time, recently, I was visiting friends in Maine who were all ex-Notre Dame sisters, and they let me in. And we were talking about our vows, how we all took vows of, poverty, chastity, obedience, which really is oppressive. And I went on about a dissertation I wrote. But the reality was, we realized, though some of us have led 20, 30, 40 years ago or more, that we kept our commitments. We kept our commitments to justice, to love, to keep the world at a place of peace and balance. And so I want to sing a song that I wrote many years ago about healing. Because all of us who do justice are healers. And we don't often claim that reality. What we do, how we do it, when we do it, for whom we do it, and how we bring it to people. We are truly healers in this world. And when we look back on Jeanne, we see, we have heard and know her work of healing. See me, how I rise, no more tears in my eyes. See me, I'm standing oh so strong. I am a woman, I am a woman, and I've come to sing my song, and I will restore you and heal your wounds again. after it's blessed the rain, then I will wipe your tears dry, and sorrow will be gone, and you will sing a new melody, and I will be your song, and I will restore you, yes, restore you, and heal your wounds again. Oh, see me, how I rise, no more tears in my eyes, no more tears in my eyes, no more tears.
Well, before we sing this song that was written by Holly Near, and I'm sure most of you know it, I have to offer a few of my own reflections on Jeanne, the teacher, yes, the force to be reckoned with. So, I was 22, I think, when I met Jeanne. And it was the summer, 23, I guess, it was the summer of 1979, and Carolyn had just returned from Nicaragua. And I was about to enter the Sisters of Notre Dame. I had not entered yet. And I met Jeanne, and she forever and ever, I think I remember the day that she first called me Mary instead of Casey, because I was Casey forever. And so I thought, oh my goodness, I must have grown up. She's now calling me Mary. But so Jeanne called me and she said, you have to meet this friend of mine. Her name is Carolyn McDade. And so I did, because you did whatever Jeanne told you to do. And especially when you were 22 or 23, you didn't ask a question, you just did it. So I arrived, and Carolyn sang Creation of Peace. I remember sitting in the corner and Carolyn playing with her, what did she play? The auto harp. She was playing the auto harp. And this was before the very first album. So that was in the summer. And I remember that, Linda, I don't know if you remember this at all, but anyway, at our entrance ceremony for the Sisters of Notre Dame, Jeanne came to me and she said, Casey, what are you singing? I said, she said, last night I had the strangest dream. That you have to sing that. I said, oh, okay. I had no idea. Do I tell them what we're singing when I go there? I said, can I do that? She goes, absolutely, of course you do. What do you think you're entering? Somebody who's going to tell you what to do? No, you tell them what to do right now. Casey, this is what to do. I said, okay, absolutely, I'll sing whatever you want me to sing. Okay. Thus begins the first lesson, that one I've never forgotten. Jeanne would say to me, it always matters what you say and with whom you stand. And I have never forgotten that. I feel like I have been trying to walk in very big shoes since the day I met Jeanne. She was the ultimate teacher. So a little bit further on, now we're January, and it's I've only entered since August. And a phone call comes. And when the phone call came from Jeanne, you just took it. So the phone call comes and she said, it was freezing cold, it was January, and she said, Casey, Sunday night, not what are you doing Sunday night? Sunday night, Arlington Street Church, be there in the basement. You remember this? Yeah, okay. So Susan, were you there for this? Susan Freireich, I think you were, yes. So Arlington Street Church, yes, you were, in the basement. And the person who was recording it comes with a microphone, and she went, and she flung it over the pipes. And we recorded, 60 women showed up that night, and we recorded a tape for the Solidarity for women in Nicaragua. And again, all Jeanne said was, be there and bring your guitar. And I said, okay, I'll be there and I will bring my guitar. From that moment on, you know, my life just became one, it was guided so many ways by Jeanne. I'll tell you one more story about that, about singing. So we finished that project, and then comes May, and she says, you have to go to Carolyn's house. And we gathered on the floor in her living room, if you remember this, Susan. We gathered on the floor in her living room to go over the songs that would become We Come With Our Voices. And we sat there for 2 hours and didn't sing anything. I need you to hear, okay, we sang nothing. And here I am waiting to sing, right? We're going to sing. No, we didn't sing. We did analysis. We had to do reflection. We had to do some really serious thinking about what we were about to do. And I remember there was a break, and I said to Jeanne, are we going to sing? And she said, maybe. I'm not sure. Right? I said, okay. Then Jeanne, at one point, we were singing a song, we were learning Gritare. Do you remember this? And we had the word libertad in it. But some of us were singing libertad. And Jeanne put her hand up. She goes, stop, stop, stop. Susan jumped right up behind her. She goes, it's libertad. So we were sitting there for 15 minutes saying the word the correct way. While Jeanne said to us, you have to understand this has to be perfect. This has to be perfect. I tell you that story because I want you to understand that those early days, back to what Sunny said at the beginning, the call to arms, very few of the women who showed up to sing were singers. Certainly not professional singers. They may not even have been singers who sang in a chorus. I remember Agnes Stapleton saying, I don't sing at all. I don't even sing in the shower, but I'll come. Do you remember that? Or Noelle Doyle. Noelle Doyle would put her hand up and she'd say, are we going to sing? Because this needs to get out on the street right now because people are waiting for this music. That was the time. Those were the times. And it was an incredible experience. It was a gift to be a young woman growing up under such tutelage. And Jeanne was there every step of the way. From the beginning to the end. When I finally left the Sisters of Notre Dame, she was the first woman to call me. She was the first phone call and said, Casey, how's it going? Jeanne, this is for you. I will tell you one more thing that one of the last things that I went to, this was in the very first few years of my time in Notre Dame. My mother called me one day and she said, what are you doing? And I said, well, I'm going to another meeting. She said, Mary, I think that's all you do is go to meetings. I said, well, no. She said, well, you know, my sister was asking me, do you ever pray? I go, oh, yeah, we pray. She goes, where? And I said, well, we're going to be praying today because we're going to be trained for civil disobedience. And my mother said, oh, Sacred Hour of Jesus. Anyway, her friend asked her what we were doing, how her daughter was in the nuns. And she said, she's not really a nun, she's a communist. Okay. Here we go. You all know this song. If there's a verse that strikes you at the end that you want to add and that really sings to you about Jeanne, just feel free. I'll strum it a little bit at the end and we can add if you want. We are a gentle, angry people, and we are singing, singing for our lives. We are a gentle, angry people, and we are singing, singing for our lives. young and old.
We are young and old together, and we are singing, singing for our lives. We are young and old together. We are singing, singing for our lives.
Land of many colors.
We are a land of many colors, and we are singing, singing for our lives. We are a land of many colors, and we are singing, singing for our lives.
Gay and straight together.
We are gay and straight together, and we are singing, singing for our lives. We are gay and straight together, and we are singing, singing for our lives.
Anybody have a verse? Anybody can think of one? Let's do people in solidarity. Ready?
We're people in solidarity, and we are singing, singing for our lives. We're people in solidarity, and we are singing, singing for our lives. We are people in the streets, and we are singing, singing for our lives. We are people in the streets, and we are singing, singing for our lives. We are all immigrants, and we are singing, singing for our lives. We are all immigrants, and we are singing, singing for our lives.
Of course we are.
We are the four-footed creatures, and we are singing, singing for our lives. We are the four-footed creatures, and we are singing, singing for our lives.
I was here I live in Santa Fe, New Mexico now, but I lived in Somerville, Cambridge, and Gloucester, Mass. And I had heard of Jeanne Gallo, and Jeanne Gallo had heard of me. And so she was living in Jamaica Plain, and by that time, I was very involved, and I was the national director of the Women's Ordination Conference, or How to Bang Your Head Against a Wall in One Easy Lesson. Or as Dan Berrigan said, love your dress, but your purse is on fire. Matter of fact, probably 40 years ago, Dan Berrigan and I were campus chaplains together at the University of Detroit. And he came to speak at the community church when it was in the auditorium. And he said, I'll only do it. He called me and said, I'm going to be in Boston. Are you around? And I think at that point I was still living in New York. So he said, I won't speak unless you sing. I said, I won't sing unless you speak. So when my partner, Robin, at the time, we both moved to Gloucester, and I heard Jeanne Gallo was in town. And so I called her and I said, Jeanne, this is Marcy Silvestro. You might know me. And she went, bless you, my sister. And she started singing one of my songs. So we had coffee, and she said, I am so honored to be with the Marcy Silvestro. And so I said, well, I was going to bring a candle to light in front of the Jeanne Gallo. But anyway, when I live in Santa Fe now, and when Sonny told me about the memorial, I said, I'm coming. I don't care how I get here. I'll ride a Pony Express, or whatever, but I'll get here. And I was going through some of my writings and my songs, and I found a quote from an article I wrote a long time ago, in 1996. And I said to myself, this is a quote about Jeanne Gallo now. And it says, our path has been cleared by the women who went before us. Women who stepped through the world as warriors and wild ones. Women who dare to carry justice like a torch, a hammer like a paintbrush, and a kitchen spatula like a violin bow. And that was Jeanne, a woman who was a warrior and a wild one, who dared to carry justice like a torch, lest we sit in the dark and think. Because Jeanne always told me, even in the dark, there's light. Even in the dark, there's light. She always said that to me. And a hammer like a paintbrush. Jeanne could fix things. You go in the house and Jeanne's got a screwdriver or something somewhere. But she's also an Italian. She's Sicilian, I'm Napolitan and Abruzzi. And she used to cook like no one I knew. And you'd walk in the house and you'd smell Italian sauce and you would thought you were died and went to heaven. But the most powerful thing for me, 13 years ago, I lost my partner to ovarian cancer. And she was up in a hospice in Maine. And the night before she died, 2 high priestesses walked into the room. And that was Sonny and Jeanne. And I will never forget, they walked in there, and I actually could see the light that they were bringing. And they sat on the chairs next to Robin's bed, and Jeanne held her hand. She was closer to Robin, and Sonny was there. And Jeanne carried a book that I'm sure all of us, if you didn't get rid of all your books, still have on your bookshelf. It was a thick book like this called Earth Prayers. And Jeanne grabbed, Robin at that point was under palliative sedation, and Jeanne grabbed her hand. And she just looked at her face, just looked at her, and I could feel the love in the room shift. And I said to myself, the high priestess has arrived. And she read a most beautiful prayer, and Sonny, I think you said something as well. And I will never forget that moment, because the Jeanne Gallo I knew was the Jeanne Gallo, and it's the person who told the stories. And in Gloucester, Robin, myself, Sonny, and Jeanne started the Rainbow Light Center for Women's Spirituality, and we would have different speakers and stuff. So I always knew the Jeanne in action, the Jeanne who called us to be who we must be in the world. And so to have Jeanne as the priestess was an honor for me, the companion, as well as an honor for the one who was moving to another dimension. And it was a dimension of Jeanne that I knew about. I knew it was there, but to see it in that moment of death and life, and to hear her pray as one who had a heart that loved, and it expanded the room for me to know that that is the greatest gift that I had with my partner and that Jeanne had with all of us. So I honor her as a blessing for all of us and as the high priestess.
So we now have an opportunity for anybody else who would like to share a reflection or a memory to do so. And in doing so, one of the things that I would raise the question so they have a minute to think about it is Audrey, Alyssa, and Ashley, have you anything that you're going to want to say? Because if you do, you should come next after this speaker. And when people come forward, please say who you are and a little about the context in which you knew Jeanne.
Good afternoon. Can you all hear me back there? Because I tend to be a little soft-spoken, unlike my cousin Jeanne. Jeanne and I are first cousins, and Eileen's mother, Franny, and I were first cousins. I, too, in Nebladon, and so is Jeanne's father. Jeanne's father and my mother were brother and sister. And so one day, about 8 or 9 years ago, I get an email that says, "Are you my cousin? I think you're my cousin." I said, "Yes, Jeannie, I am your cousin. I met you when I was 14 and visiting my mom's home, which is Boston, and you were wearing a habit. And then more recently, our cousin Nick introduced us online. Well, she and the wonderful Sunny were coming through Albany, New York, where I live, on their way to Oregon, Naganas, and a few other stops. And I think you're home too. Sunny's home. And I had the most delightful, inspiring visit I've ever had. My son came over to make dinner so that I could really visit with them. And they don't know this, but they were pretty tired from driving and eating. And so they went up to the guest room to get some sleep, and he said to me, "Mom, they're absolutely delightful. They're like hippies." Well, they inspired me in so many ways. They brought a DVD for me to watch. Some of you may be familiar with it, Pink Smoke. I've been involved with the Women's Priest Movement ever since. I attend a whole new faith community in which we have men and women priests, but the men and the women have to be members of the Association of the Roman Catholic Women Priests, and I went to their retreat last year, and my life has been transformed. I'm all about transformation. I'm also a trainer and a practitioner in restorative justice, and I'm about to train my faith community in restorative practices in memory of a dear man who also led me to the upper room, this inclusive community in Little Albany, New York. And today my partner and I drove here from the Adirondacks. First we went from the Adirondacks to Albany in here, and finding a parking spot here is nothing short of a miracle. But I echo what everyone else has said. Jeanne was truly miraculous and a wonderful, inspiring family member. I brag about her all the time. My whole faith community knows about her and about the Fisherman's Wife sculpture, which I was able to see when I was here about 2 years ago. I'm very proud of her. I really am. I'm so happy to be here. It was a long drive. Thank you so much for listening.
So, oh, good. Hello, John. Good.
Hi, folks. I'm Jonathan King from Cambridge. In the early 1980s, when President Reagan kind of launched upgrading of the Cold War, I was part of a group in Boston called the Boston Jobs for Peace Campaign, and we developed a budget that talked about, how you could upgrade housing and healthcare and education if you cut the military budget, and we pushed for referendum on the ballot, non-binding referendum. Jeanne in those days was teaching, among other things, as a sister of Notre Dame at the girls' high school in South Boston. And she invited me to come to her class to talk about, the Jobs with Peace budget, which was quite thrilling in terms of South Boston. It was a foreign country to me at that time. But even more interesting, which is totally unknown, is how come we knew each other. We knew each other because earlier, when she first started teaching in South Boston, she put in some kind of class, even though it was a girls' school at that time, that it had some automotive mechanics in it. Or maybe she taught about internal combustion engines because she was a science teacher. And I had, in those days, I was involved with Science with the People, and I'd written an article about problems with the U.S. auto industry and better ways to go. And she invited me to the class to get that into the syllabus, which was really, I thought, well, that is really the front edge of the kind of jobs he's getting in. And of course, in all the years since, myself and many of my colleagues in the peace movement have followed Jeanne and Sonny's work in Latin America and, been inspired by it. And, it's a loss, but we have to remember all our contributions and keep on moving forward. Thanks.
Dean,
If there's anybody who would like to just speak from where you are, I have a cordless mic here and I can gladly take it to you.
so next I think we're going to hear from Audrey and Alyssa and Ashley and maybe even Diana. And Alan, you're here too, and do you have Allison with you? This family is generally known as the A's and Diana. Yeah, use that.
Hi, my name is Audrey, and I'm 9 years old. We used to go and visit Jeanne every once in a while, and we used to go often, and we'd go and play and talk and have stories. Hi, my name's Alyssa. I am 6 years old. Jeanne was a very good friend. We all loved her very much.
Hi, my name is Diana. He calls me the publicity person, but I guess I have representatives now. You can tell. I met Jeanne through Sunny. I did work a few years ago as a home health aide for Ruth Hubbard, who was Jeanne and Sunny's dear friend. And back then I was living here by myself, minus the A's. He lived back home in Uganda, where we come from. And I was here going to UMass Boston trying to get a pre-med degree. And as I worked on the side, and so I met Sunny and a few other friends, Denny and Jerry. And they have been our longest friends in this space. And we tend to have older friends. When we walked in, she said, everyone here is older. Well, the truth is, if you look different, Sometimes it takes people who have walked different paths in the world to understand who you are, but also it takes people who have the thirsty for justice to stand by your side and be upstanders. And that's what the support we've gotten from Sunny and Jeanne over the years. I remember we had her during COVID, and Jeanne came out with her walker and a mask and sat outside with us and held the baby. And they've made all the trips for every baby, for every birthday, for every graduation. I struggled there trying to decide whether I wanted to go back to do a PhD, which I'm doing now at Yale. And my conversation with Jeanne, I will forever remember, because she said to me, "You are so brilliant, and you would have so many doors open to you with a PhD from Yale. You don't need it because you're brilliant, but go for it." And that was amazing of her to say. I didn't know how I was going to do it with my family, but every single day they would call us and check in and be supportive. And then I hit a bump with my dissertation, and I remember visiting her in Gloucester and sitting down, and she said, "Well, you're writing that dissertation for your committee." That's what I did. So I learned from that. I went back and started working on what my committee wanted me to do, with the exception of not giving up the justice lens with which I was looking at my dissertation. And when we learned of Jeanne's passing, all of us went to a church down our main street and lit candles, and the girls sat quietly and said their piece with it. And so she's dear to us. We will always remember her, and Sunny, of course, and all the older folks in our lives who really understand being different. And we are very thankful for having had to share the last decade or so that we did with Jeanne, and we still have Sunny, and so glad to be here and share with you.
It would be a toss-up whether Audrey and Alyssa and Ashley liked Jeanne better when she was in the lounge chair and could make it go up or down, or whether they liked her better when she was in our stair lift going up and down, and they could ride with her up and down the stairs. So, someone else? Ani? Okay, all right.
You sure?
Yeah, no.
Okay.
Go ahead.
Well, first of all, I'm a sister of Notre Dame de Namur. After 81 years in the congregation, I'm still here. And I have to make a confession.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah. You know, my experience with Jeanne was kind of broken. I first met Jeanne in Brazil, and that was like mid-70s. Then I never saw Jeanne again, personally, until 2 years ago. So I learned more about Jeanne this afternoon than I ever knew about Jeanne for all those years. And the thing is, when Jeanne came to Brazil, she was still a young sister. I'm the venerable older sister. And I think when Jeanne came, she wasn't planning to stay for a long time. She had a definite purpose of coming. She wanted to do a research with, como se chama? I'm sorry, I'm thinking in Portuguese. Factory workers. And in San Luis, where she first came, where I was living with Barbara English, she came. And we had to tell Jeanne she was coming into a dictatorship, that you can't go around and buy all over. You had to watch what you were saying, how you were acting. And one day, she was in the room, her room,
and she had a suitcase on the floor. And she called me, Annie. So I come running in. She said, what's that animal in my suitcase? And I looked down. Oh, Jeanne, don't worry about that. That's only a roach. Don't you tell me what a roach is. I know what a roach is. Our roaches were this big. And I said, Jeanne, because I didn't even know Boston, but I said, Jeanne, you're not in Boston now. You're in the Amazon. And she looked at me so bewildered. And she said, okay, Jeanne, let it go for now. And I said to her, now, when you go on the bus, she was going to travel to meet our other sisters in the interior. Be careful on the bus, because there's always one, I don't know what to call them, a spy for the government. So you have to be careful of what you say. So English or Portuguese or Spanish. Anyway, she came back after 2 weeks, and she said, wow, that was incredible. But guess what? One of the trips coming back, everybody had to get off the bus, and the police or the army examined the suitcases. And she stood there. I can't remember what she had in the suitcase, but one of the soldiers picked it up and says, what's this? She said, don't worry about it, it's a doll. And it was no doll any more than a real doll, but she made it up and got away with it. And I said, thank you, God. Then she went off to Recife, which was quite a distance from we live. We were up in Maranhão, and it's the other side. Do you know the shape of Brazil like an ice cream cone? Hi, Rita. Rita remembers hers too, because Rita was there at the time. We had another couple of sisters in Recife, and one of them was also a very professional researcher. And evidently, they had some clashes, as Jeanne was firm, so was the other sister firm. So it was a marvelous experience. And I know Jeanne finally, when she did come back, and then I didn't see her until it was almost 2 years when she came back to return to the States. And she said to me, well, it was a true learning experience, how these workers were being so badly treated. And these industries were foreign industries. They were not Brazilian. Then I didn't see Jeanne again physically, but I did get notes from her on and off. And I think it was in 2017 that she wrote to me and said, my friend Sonny and I would like to come to Brazil. Do you think you could put us up? And I said, by all means, come. We've got plenty of space. But something happened, and they couldn't come. Then I never heard from Jeanne again until 2.5 years ago, when all of a sudden I get a message that Jeanne is here and wants to see me. And Sonny is the one that came to Ipswich to give me a ride to take me over to see Jeanne. And that happened once a month at least, right? But I do want you to know that it was Jeanne that introduced me to the House of Peace that we have in Ipswich, and we have our coordinators right here. I was I was just so taken with what Jeanne was doing still. But this is what I want to really bring out for me. What I've witnessed with Jeanne in these last 2 years, hearing what everybody here has said, it was in these last 2 years, I believe Jeanne did her most powerful work. I really do. because she couldn't get up and walk and go out. But she had that spirit of sending out the energies, and she never stopped. And I saw her only 4 days before she left us. But I don't think Jeanne left us. I believe she's here. And so I asked Sonny if I could do something that we would all continue to know the work she's doing, because she's going to continue my work. And I brought it with me. And she was very interested that at my venerable age, I can still keep screaming. And my life's work has been actually health work, and it's been health education. And health is life. It's every bit of us. It's not just curing illnesses. It's spirituality, so it's everything, justice, peace. So my big battle for health, after having worked all those years with our people who have been suffering because of international industries taking the lands away, polluting the waters, destroying the globe, I learned when I came back to the States that Ellis Jones from Boston College had published this little book, and I got into it. And when I showed it to Jeanne and Sonny, Jeanne got really excited about it, but put it aside because it was for Sonny to do the shopping. It's called The Better World Shopping Guide. But you have to read all the first few pages before you get in. He has done for over 30 years with a team, investigation in all the companies, and they're all here. Now, what I'm doing, and today I'm doing this in Jeanne's name and Sonny's name. I'm going to leave books out there for you to take, but you need to read them, and then they're pocket books. Put them in your pocket. You saw me pull it out. And when you go shopping, be careful, because I think everyone here listening to you knows we here right now in the States are going through one of the worst times in the history of the United States. It's going. And who's supporting it? Not just the great president, but all those who finance him. And we are giving that money to them without realizing what we're doing. So I'm going to leave these out at the back, and please take them, one for each house, if you can. And God bless everybody, and thank you for your incredible spirit of justice and peace and tranquility and love. I know God is pouring graces on everybody. So I'm positive Jeanne is up there moving things with all our other wonderful martyrs up there. So God bless, and keep up your courage and go.
Anyone else? And she doesn't like people to tell that.
$10 each time.
Right. So for people who missed that, Rita was saying that Ani is 101. So what Ani says is she's only 1 year and 3 months into her second decade, or second century. Right. Okay. Anyone else, Paul?
Dean?
Hi there. Hi everyone, I'm Paul Shannon. I started working with Jeanne Gallo in 1975 with the Christians for Socialism group. We didn't get far enough. But I ask myself, what do you do when you lose someone who's such a permanent fixture of our lives and our movement? Someone who has been walking at our side for all these years. How do you hold on to them? How do you carry on their work? Jeanne Gallo was a permanent fixture of our life and times for such a long time. She was one of those people who knew that all of our liberation was on the road, took the road through the city of dignity for the poor. And she lived that belief. Jeanne Gallo was an immovable force for justice. She brook no foolishness. Vicki and I will really miss our times together with our 4-part discussions with Jeanne and Sonny. We will especially miss their love-filled arguments with each other. And so it's time to appreciate this woman. It's time to hold on to her. Jeanne, don't forget us. We will not forget you. And who knows if we ever find our way, which I think we will, through this disastrous situation in which we find ourselves. Perhaps someday, as I think Pablo Neruda wrote, someday perhaps with banners waving, we will find our way into the lovely cities where all the tears that we cried all these years will finally be wiped away, and where we will all have the chance, finally, once again, to laugh together. Thank you, Jeanne.
I think I'm going to suggest we flip the last 2 little pieces that are in your program so that we wind up with Marcy's song and then gather for some refreshments. I think everyone will now understand why this one little prayer is the closing prayer that I have chosen for us. One thing that you should all know is this is the way Jeanne and I ended each of our immigration workshops that we did when we were doing them all over the greater Boston area. So, walk the good path. Do not be daunted by the enormity of the world's grief. Do justice now. Love mercy now. Walk humbly now. You are not obligated to complete the work, but neither are you free to abandon it.
I think the one thing we all were reminded of today is that we are all a thread in the web of safety. And that Jeanne was an incredible weaver in our lives. And so with that in mind, we will bless her We will affirm her. We will stand in gratitude for her. Dag Hammarskjöld has a quote that says, "For all that has been, thanks. For all that will be, yes." So let's sing the song of blessing to Jeanne with a powerful yes to us taking up the torch of justice. Bless you, my sister. Bless you on your way. You have roads to roam before your home, and winds to speak your name. So go gently, my sister. Let courage be your song. You have words to say in your own way, and stars to light your night. And if ever you grow weary and your heart song has no refrain, just remember we'll be waiting to raise you up again, and we'll bless you, our sister. Bless you on your way, and we'll welcome home all the life you've known, and softly speak your name. Oh, we'll welcome home all the self you own, and softly speak your name. Bless you, dear Jeanne. We bless you on your way.
So please do join us for refreshments. And if you want to hear more from Jeanne, I think you will find 3 of her talks recorded on the website of Community Church. The first is from 1983, and then the second is when she accepted in 2008 the Sacco and Vanzetti Award for Jim Harney, who had already passed by then, unfortunately. And then she and I did the Easter program in April of 2019, on immigration issues. So she's very much there. And in fact, the photograph on the front of the program is Jeanne at the immigration talk at Community Church in 2019. So thank you all so much for joining us today. Be sure to meet everybody who's here. It's a remarkable group of people. Thank you. Thank you.
And a tiny final word from Community Church. Thanks to Luis Guzman, who has prepared the spread for us today. Gracias, Luis. And also, if you parked in the Back Bay garage, I have a voucher for you that will give you a discount. And we're honored that you were all here today. Thank you. Take a newsletter with you as you go.